Before we dive into today's episode, please note the views and opinions shared by our guest are entirely his or her own and do not reflect the positions of any organization with which he or she may be affiliated, past or present. All insights represent his or her personal perspectives only.
Hi, welcome and grüezi to a new episode of Governance Unplugged. I'm Thomas Michel. I'm your host with 25 years of experience in senior positions in internal audit and risk management for the Big Fours and as the head of internal audit and risk management at the World Economic Forum. Today, I run my own advisory firm working hands-on with leadership teams to build governance that goes beyond ticking the boxes, but governance that truly fits the organization, its real risk exposure, and most importantly, its culture and DNA. Today's episode is about something that many organizations talk about, but only a few truly master. The title of today's episode is The Human Side of Artificial Intelligence: Change, Trust, and Governance in One Playbook. As you all know, AI is no longer a future topic. It's here. It is embedded in products, processes, decision-making, and increasingly also in strategy. But technology is rarely the real challenge. The real challenge is trust, adoption, accountability, and governance that enables innovation without losing control. And to explore this properly, I'm delighted to welcome someone who operates exactly at the intersection of AI, digital transformation, executive leadership, and governance. Today, I'm joined by Christian Deloes, an AI transformation leader who spent more than 25 years helping organizations turn digital ambitions into real execution. Christian works at the intersection of strategy, operating model change, and responsible governance with human centricity. So AI delivers measurable value without losing trust or control. He is ProC AdCar Change practitioner, a safe portfolio manager, and holds certifications in generative AI. He is also a certified board director, bringing a sharp boardroom view on accountability and risk. Beyond his international experience across 7 countries and 4 continents, Christian actively bridges Switzerland-Sweden's business relations as the nomination committee chair of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Sweden. And that same Switzerland-Sweden link and beyond is also the common ground for his business as an entrepreneur. Christian, welcome to Governance Unplugged.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I am honored to be invited to your very well-visited and excellent podcast series. I'm excited to discuss about how do we move the needle? What does it mean? It means to accelerate AI adoption and AI transformation that is Gen AI driven, and foremost, and what makes the difference, and that is human-centric AI transformation. This is what I stand for in my experience.
Before we dive into AI governance and transformation, let's start with 2 lighthearted questions. Christian, are you ready?
Yes, I am, Thomas.
Okay, so what's something you are generally curious about right now outside of work?
Well, with the speed of light and continuously picking up the speed, that is the Gen AI transformation that started in 2022, I am getting a lot of questions, and also I'm thinking a lot about how is this impacting on young professionals? Because it's not about AI replacing humans, as those that fear it are thinking or saying and present a resistance. It is about how does AI augment the humans. However, for young professionals that don't have the work and life experience yet, AI is both a possibility to discuss with experienced people, but the whole thing here is how do we fast track the young professionals so they become experienced much faster than before, because this is needed since Gen AI can do quite a few things young professionals actually were doing before Gen AI.
When you had a demanding week, what's your simplest reset that reliably brings you back to yourself?
So when I get a long day and if my dog is at home, I go for a dog leash walk where I live. Otherwise, One example of unwinding completely is last Sunday when I went with wife and dog on a Sunday walk on a lake that covered with ice and flooded in sun. But what makes me recharge in the best way is two things. One is downhill skiing in the Swiss Alps or being at my cottage in the Stockholm archipelago in Sweden.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Christian. So
my pleasure.
That brings us to the main part of our conversation today. Let's set the frame what good looks like. Christian, when you speak about human-centric AI transformation, what does success look like in practical terms? 6 months after go live, what is visibly different in an organization, in behavior, in decisions, and in culture?
Well, thank you, Thomas. First, let me say this straightforward. AI transformation does not have a go-live date. It's not another IT project. Let me put this very clearly. AI transformation entails a paradigm change in mindset and ways of working. This leads to a shift in operating model that will continuously evolve incrementally and exponentially. We are talking about the fifth industrial revolution that is probably as large or larger than the four previous industrial revolutions together. So 6 months down the road, the organization feels engaged and energized if we start to see emerging change, if there is psychological safety, and this is the key requisite. And I can give you an example of psychological safety. So Thomas, let's see. You have tried new things within guardrails, within code of conduct and applicable legal context. So no problem for you, no disciplinary consequence. But the thing is, you have tried something different, which is good. You did this with a customer and it went not so good. So what have you learned from it? And then you would answer, you would be probably scared, thinking, it could lead to that I let you go or something in that direction. But don't worry, what I'm after is that, well, the customer has called me since I'm your superior, your leader, and we discussed how to solve it. So we have agreed that you and the customer will stand at our all employee in 2 weeks on the scene. You will tell us all what didn't go well. And then you go, oh, you want to make me lose my face? No. It's not about making lose the face. It's about what you learned, that you're sharing what you have actually tried to do. And what we're going to do is like a mini ceremony. You're going to get rewarded with flowers or something like that. Yeah. Just to mark the point that it's worth trying things, because if as a leader, me or somebody else doesn't provide the possibility to try new things, then you will be scared and you will not try new things, fearing of consequences. And this is widely spread in the world because we have only 15-16% of the global workforce that is actively engaged and motivated towards the work. Why I am talking about this in the context of AI, because it's even more important since everything is about to shift very rapidly, that we really enable innovation as leaders. 6 months down the road, the organization will see this if there is a leadership that actually actively enables what? Fail fast forward. That is the point. So when it comes to behaviors, we will see a shift from will this replace me to how can this amplify me instead? And people will stop hiding their shadow IT. We'll discuss a little bit later as well for the governance part, but they will then start sharing prompts openly like recipes in the kitchen. When it comes to decision making, we move from think to the data suggests, but my human judgment says, remember what I said before, it's about AI is augmenting the human, not replacing. Okay, that's a red thread across it. So with that said, success is when a junior analyst feels safe enough to use AI insights to respectfully challenge a senior VP like me from God's feeling. So in culture, you see a learning first culture. If a model hallucinates, the team doesn't panic. They debug the process, and governance has moved from a policing function to a safety net that encourages speed. A successful 6 months mark feels usually like productive friction. So, and if it doesn't feel like productive friction, the needle hasn't moved. And it is like, oh, our data is not the best. We need to do something about that. And we understand that, well, our data is messier than we thought it was. We need to refine it based on our ethics policy. If everything feels perfectly smooth, then what is happening? Well, then we are likely not pushing the technology deep enough into our actual operations. So success is when you no longer see random acts of AI. 6 months in, every pilot run the company is explicitly linked into a strategic unit of measure. I will say also that it needs to be connected to a business case. Then visibly, the conversation has shifted. We aren't talking about what the tool can do, but how it is moving the needle on our specific business objectives. A pilot must be connected to, again, a key measure, and that is connected to the business objectives. Otherwise, your strategy is not connected to execution. So with that said, it's even that the human side, and that is very, very important. What I've seen from my experience in all kinds of transformations before AI as well, is that never do we have a transformation that connects the human side and integrates it properly into the technical part of the transformation. So the difference from a transformation in the past and now is, if we do the comparison between a digital and AI transformation, what is the difference? The difference is the speed when things need to change because of the current evolution of things, and with every day it goes faster and faster. So also the other thing is that a lot of our work that is manual, tedious, repetitive, so on, can already today and is about being replaced by AI. Not that AI is replacing the humans, but we can spend more time on creative tasks, leadership, lead people, develop people, but those that are not leaders today can also spend things on much more value creation than before. So it's beautiful that we have, finally, that we have generative AI agents and agentic AI later, and so on. So with that said, to finish up, what I want to say to conclude on this point is, what is really important is, if you want to have an accelerated AI transformation, what you need to do is you need to make sure that even the human side adoption culture should have its own objective measurability. So you can actually objectively measure and drive the human side of change, and that is a accelerated AI adoption.
So, Christian, from your experience, what are the 3 most common failure points you observe in AI transformation, and where do organizations most frequently go wrong? And which one is the most underestimated by executive teams or even boards? What are the useful guidance and laws out there that we should keep in mind, such as NIST AI Risk Management Framework or maybe the EU AI Act?
So interesting, Thomas. Yes, this is a question 3 parts. So the first part, I'll answer it in this way. That is thinking of the WAV in Davos in January. And one of the main red threads across it was AI. And the subject that kept popping up is that pilots or POCs, proof of concepts, do not scale. And instead of creating value, AI is generating a huge cost burden. The primary reasons for that are, 1, and that is lack of connection to business value and a business case. When executive teams underestimate the need for strategic portfolio management, they end up with a graveyard of prototypes that never scale. They fail because they didn't define what success looks like. So that leads us to point number 2 of the 3 in this sub question, and that is, what gets measured gets followed up. So if it's not measurable, there's no clear business value, and without measurability, boards and C-level teams have no visibility, hence give little or no attention. And the most underestimated one is the third, and that is lack of human-centric approach, no change management. Now, let's make a small comparison. You know what? Now it's the third time I take up this point with you, and you're still not moving into the right direction. Then I think, what's his problem? Should I keep him or not? What should I do with him? And then most likely the fault is here, me, not you, because I haven't worked with the what's in it for me. I have not worked with first, why are we going this direction? Second, why now? And three, what are the consequences at large, not for you personally, if you're not moving? So then if you don't know that, you cannot build the what's in it for me, which means you are probably resist to the change, and you are not choosing to jump on that change journey train. This is what we want to avoid. We want to reduce resistance from the beginning and make sure that we get as many people on board as possible from the beginning. So lack of human-centric approach, no change management is the third reason. And now, more than ever before, integration of measurable change management, and not only communication and training, which is misunderstood as change management in a very wrong way. That needs to be change management from the outset is a make or break order of magnitude more than ever before. Why? Again, because the ways we are about to be working will change completely. I give you one example. In a leadership team, you will have agents. The CMO can be an agent, not saying the CMO is going to be replaced. I just take one example, which is not impossible. And it can be other ones that we haven't thought of today so in a way or another, organizations will see agents at different levels that are virtual colleagues in the organization, working alongside and together with humans to augment the human. And that is something exciting, but also a completely different planet for many. So this is why change management is 80% of AI transformation going forward, instead of what has commonly been said about 70% earlier. So what we have till date is 70% of change transformation is unsuccessful or failing. Now, we also have the other fact that culture transformation is used to take about 1.5 years in a larger transformation. And we have now to change it around, that 70% at least should be successful. And the time we have now with AI for culture transformation is maybe cut to a third, which means 6 months or something like this. And additionally, the reason why we need more than ever change management is because we need to continuously upskill ourselves all the time. It's not, oh, I take this certification, this course and that every year. No, it is continuous upscaling every day in a way or another. And that is a completely different mindset that cannot be underestimated. And I'm talking at length about it because this is really, really important to understand. And making sure that this fear that many have and a resistance is quite important. I'm also looking at one more thing, which is really important, and that is in the world, which countries are leading and lagging in AI adoption, which is really important to move forward, because everything in society, private, at home, everywhere work we're going to have AI at the base and completely embedded everywhere. So what we need to make sure of is that if we live in a country that is lagging in AI adoption, we need to make sure that we even more than before accelerate AI transformation. And notwithstanding companies, it is really important that every government that does not have done it yet pushes for national AI strategy that everything else is being built around. And that goes the same for companies. If you don't have an AI strategy, you need one. Okay, Christian, we cannot have an AI strategy and our business strategy. It's correct. you need to work with a strategy and then as fast as possible integrate it into your business strategy. This is also moving forward in terms of AI maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I would like to raise one last point that is really important, and that is addressed to you board members that need to understand your responsibility in AI governance. In Switzerland and in Sweden, being myself board certified at European level, I know that in both countries, if you're a board member, you have a personal liability that is personal, but also collective together with the rest of the board members. So what does it imply? It implies now what I see is that is really important is that I talk to some other board members in other boards, not in my context, and I see that, well, what you say, Christian, about this AI governance, stop it. Come on, don't talk to me about this. This is I delegated to the CEO. Nothing can be more wrong because of the personal liability. And here comes. So board members are unaware of the personal liability towards EU directives, regulations, and laws. Explicitly, I'll take up one example. There are more than that. There is the NIST AI risk management framework, but I talk about the top one, which is the EU AI Act, which is in place. And listen very well to this one. If you are breaching or are non-compliant to this EU AI Act, and you get caught and deemed non-compliant or not aligned, then you risk a percentage of your global turnover as a company. And on top of that, a total nightmare and total stop almost in the company because you need to document everything backwards that you haven't traceability on for years behind to satisfy that EU law. So it is also about GDPR. Well, we all know about GDPR, but I think this needs to be revisited as well. But really, this is a good reminder in this case, and so it's in the interest of companies and boards, especially to safeguard full compliance towards the applicable EU legislation. The risk of not governing the existing reality is far higher than the risk of controlled pilots.
So Christian, that's extremely interesting what you're saying. So if board wants to act within the next 30 days, what are the 3 concrete actions you would mandate immediately to reduce liability and regain control over existing Gen AI usage without stopping the innovation?
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Thomas. I think immediately about what is happening. And there are 2 things here. It's the overall title is Shadow IT. And what is Shadow IT? Shadow IT is what everybody is doing today, while employees in many organizations are still waiting for how to operationalize AI based on an AI policy, for instance, and other guidelines. They are doing uploading documents that are sensitive, so forth. And this is a huge risk for companies, again, when it comes to the EU AI Act, the GDPR, and if you're in the banking and financing sector, it's DORA, it's Basel III, Solvency II, etc. And in each sector, there are different applicable rules. So with that said, what there are 3 moves I would look at. It's first, tighten the pipes, turn on the lights, and set the rules of the road. So let me explain what I mean. The tighten the pipes is 1 approved Gen AI front door plus clear data traffic lights. So give people a safe and easy place to work, like an enterprise tool with login. I mean, an AI tool that has been approved, that is safe, and foremost, where the data does not go to a server in the US or in other countries. Living in the EU, including Switzerland, we don't want any data to leave the EU or ES. And in Switzerland, we prefer that the data remains inside Switzerland. And there are a lot of efforts, billions of Swiss francs being invested in that. And for GDPR related data and other rules, it's not enough if it stays in this context. It has to stay within your domain in a safe way, like employee information, customer information, just to take two, and there are many more categories. So it is important that this tool enables, that your information stays safe and external parties are being kept safe as well as your employees. So this is also to publish a simple green, amber, red RAG rule for what can be prompted or uploaded. So it may take time to produce an AI policy and to have it approved everywhere in the company, especially if it's a bit larger. So this is the first part. So the second part is stop the highest liability leakage fast without banning Gen AI, because what many are doing today, we have an AI policy, look, everything is forbidden. Good luck, I'm saying. Yeah. So this is not what we need here. So do a quick shadow AI sweep and immediately block or restrict the riskiest behaviors. That again is customer and personal information uploads, confidential documents, and unmanaged plugins and connectors, while keeping the approved tools open for innovation. Third and last, create a fast decision ownership lane. So we need to appoint one executive level, one C-level executive owner that can have that responsibility, and create a small cross-functional AI steering group that doesn't need to be the whole management, but needs to be those ones that are responsible for risk, data, and related things. You must have, because of the EU AI Act and other legislation, you need to have a use case register with a fast track approval path for low risk ideas and a clear escalation path for high risk ones. So this traceability as well. If you get audited, it already applies. You are in total trouble if you don't have the traceability. It doesn't mean that this should stop you from innovating. Just keep it simple but clear and communicate it. Make sure it's being applied and adhered to. So in that way, you reduce liability, regain control, and still give teams a license to move fast inside guardrails.
There is still this perception that governance slows down things. But if governance is done well, it should enable speed and trust. What would you consider a minimum viable AI governance framework in the first 90 days of an AI journey?
Thank you, Thomas. Governance should provide guidance, not the brake, meaning guardrails to operate within clear boundaries, responsibilities, and not creating new hurdles, as partly mentioned just before. It should be like the guardrail on a mountain road that allows you to drive fast with confidence. Yeah. And in the first 90 days, your governance is your portfolio filter. It's a simple set of criteria. One, does this align with our strategic priorities? Second, it should be measurable outcomes as well. And second, is the risk within our appetite? And third, is there a clear owner? Who owns this? It's not, everybody owns it. No. It needs to be very clear. If you have those three, you have the license to move fast. And this prevents shadow IT, not by policing it, but by proving a clear fast track for legitimate business ideas. And let me explain also what the minimum viable AI governance framework should encompass for these first 90 days at least. What are the focus on the three things of a minimum viable AI governance framework for the first 90 days? It's one, a clear policy, what's in, what's out, and that does not just forbid everything. Second, a registry of AI use cases, providing the visibility and traceability, and that is being part of that strategic portfolio. And third, a cross-functional steering group. I might be repeating myself, but I think it's good that this is being repeated because this is the essence of making this work. What is a strategic portfolio? From my experience of 30 years in business, what I see very often, that still many organizations and companies do not have the connection between the strategy and execution. Then someone goes, hey, are you criticizing, telling me that we have no clue of what we're doing? Yes, we have, but it is not efficient enough and it's not clearly connected to the strategy. This is why, while companies and organizations have been successful, to be successful in the future, we need to have business agility. And what is the business agility? It means that you must have the strategy connected to its execution. And this is partly the missing link in why pilots are not scaling. So what I'm saying here, what is important is, it's like, think of a car. If you have a modern car, the car normally needs a large service once per year and a small service like the oil change. All right. So think about the yearly service on your car. So every year you look at what you do, a strategy review, and you look at the portfolio and the portfolio outcome and see how it is connected. That's the first part. But a portfolio is only worth that much or has zero value if you do not have measures connected that come from the strategic objectives and the benefits to be realized to achieve the strategic objectives. So this is why you need to have measures of outcomes like OKRs, for examples, objectives and key results. So the objectives are connected to strategic objectives and the key results are the benefits to be realized to achieve those strategic objectives. It's as simple as that. And from that, you have tasks. Now, what is the small service? It is every 3 months, what you will do, you will have a minor review of the portfolio. You will run the pilots that are connected to business value and to a business case, and making sure that you have value creation. If there's no value creation, kill your own darlings, stop the pilots and scale those that start to show value. That is, and do not do 15 pilots. Start with 2-3 pilots. Coming back to the subject of governance. And what I want to say is that you need to have a clear AI policy, a registry of use cases, and this cross-functional steering group, which will part or in whole also make up your portfolio board. And what you don't want, and you need to avoid, is to build a 50-page policy manual that no one reads. So avoid analysis paralysis by trying to categorize every hypothetical risk before you even run a single experiment. And here comes, Thomas, your subject, governance, which is mine as well, and that is risk management. So what you want to have is a risk ledger that has the different subject of business risk, financial risk, commercial risk, legal risks, and what other risks, and also sustainability risks. So these are the 5 common themes of risk management, and this is part of a connection that you need to make with your strategic portfolio, and you need to evaluate the risk itself and have clear measures of risks. How do you measure risk? How do you mitigate risk? How do you respond to risks?
Thank you, Christian, for sharing that. So AI cuts across the whole business, right? IT, data, risk, compliance, internal audit, and ultimately also the board. How do you design clear roles, decision rights, and accountability across these layers so that ownership is visible and shadow AI is reduced?
So let's think, Thomas, about something completely different. Let me take an example of renovating your house.
I like that.
Everyone is living in a house or in an apartment. So with that, the IT and data teams are contractors. So that's the contractors that come in and are renovating your house. They know the tools, the materials, and the building codes. But the business leader is the house owner. It's you, Thomas, your house. So you and your family are the ones who have to live in a house, pay the mortgage, and reap from the benefits. With that said, the biggest mistake is letting the contractors decide where the walls go without the home owner's input. But you tell me, hey, Christian, you put the window here. This is where I wanted the door. Yeah. So to fix this, we designed the rights, decision rights, where the business owner is explicitly accountable for the value and the risks, while IT, data, and risk provide the expert guardrails. And here, I'm going to give two examples of what was not right.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, it was a worldwide IT transformation program that lacked visible connection with business. And that is an example of when it's not being understood to create value. You cannot run things. You cannot decide what to do at the strategic level on the IT side. You must have the business there. The business tells you where and what and how, and the how is on the IT side. Yeah. So this distinction needs to be there, and it's still valuable here, and also here in the context of renovating a house. And it's even more before when it comes to AI context because of things I was mentioning before. The other example, I once saw a marketing team that was frustrated with how slow the official reporting was. They decided to take matters in their own hands. How? They took a shortcut and uploaded a massive export of customer data into a public, uncurated Gen AI tool, ChatGPT, to find trends for a board presentation. This is a big no-no. And the failure, what was it? Because they bypassed the data and governance teams, they didn't realize the export contained anonymized, personally identifiable information. Even worse, the AI hallucinated a 20% growth trend that didn't exist because the data was messy and duplicated. So imagine total disaster. When such a thing happens, think about the legal parts, the ethical parts, and last but not least, the reputation can go away in 1 second. Like it's been said in China hundreds of years ago, still applies. It takes 100 years to build a bridge and 1 second to destroy it.
Correct.
So the lesson says they had the why, well, the business, and they had the tool, IT, but they lacked the fuel, that is data governance. And data governance cannot be underestimated, and that's also under the CDO, Chief Data Officer. If you have one, good. If you don't, the size of your business justifies it, do it. Otherwise, you still need to have one person responsible and accountable for that, always. This is why also I said it led to nearly a massive disaster. It was a massive compliance breach and strategic disaster. So this is why I insist that data ownership is a non-negotiable part of strategic portfolio. So it needs to be verified that while selecting initiatives, pilots or other endeavors such as projects and programs in the portfolio, you need to make sure that you have the verification about the data and that is being there. You can't have AI without information integrity. It's simple as that. So to make sure data is visible in your decision rights answer, you can frame it as the 4 pillars that must be aligned. And the first one is, again, about the renovation object. You, the business, the homeowner, account for the value and the measure of value in OKR or whatever you want to use. And then the IT is the contractor and accountable for the infrastructure and integration. The third pillar is the data, the fuel, and the data officer or engineer, well, highest accountable in the organization, accountable for the quality, privacy, and lineage of information. And fourth and last, risk and compliance. This is, again, about the guardrails, accountable for safety and legal alignment, EU AI Act and other application laws and legislations that are both EU and national.
Christian, not every AI risk deserves board level escalation. Which AI risks should truly sit on the board agenda and which belong at operational level? And how do you translate high-level ethical principles like fairness, transparency, privacy into concrete guardrails and controls that people actually understand and apply?
Thank you, Thomas. Think about the city's water supplies, to speak about another analogy. The board cares about the purity of the source. Is the reservoir contaminated? Are we breaking environmental laws? They don't need to taste every glass of water. That's for the operational teams to check out. So let's elaborate how this translates to AI. On the board agenda, it's about strategic and systemic risk. So we're talking about liability and compliance. That means, are we prepared for the EU AI Act? The second, reputation and ethics. Does this align with our brand values? And third, workforce evolution. How is it shifting our human capital?
Mm-hmm.
So the strategic alignment is about, is the AI portfolio actually moving our measure of outcome or OKR, or are we just burning cash? And then we go down to the operational level, that is the technical and execution risk. And then we have again the famous 3 points. The first one is accuracy. So is the model hallucinating today? How are we reducing it? Data quality, is the fuel clean and mapped correctly? Because without good and correct data, AI is not so much of help. And third, adoption velocity, because it will be like before we said, garbage in, garbage out. That is since we started to work with data and move from paper and pen to computers.
How do you make things like fairness or transparency real for the employees?
Well, it's about the higher level ethical principles that often to wait for developer or business lead to make them work. We translate them into binary guardrails, which within our strategic portfolio. We turn a feeling into a filter. And what do I mean by this and how do we do it? So it's about fairness, transparency, and privacy. Privacy. Instead of a lecture on bias, we set a control. The model's output must be tested against X demographic data. If the variance is larger than Y percentage, the model does not go into production. This is one measure of fairness. There are other ones, but that is what I suggest. Then on the transparency side, we don't just say be open. We require a model fact sheet for every pilot. Coming back to the famous kitchen, Thomas, it's like a nutrition label on food. So the user knows exactly what the AI was trained on. And last but not least, privacy. This becomes a data kill switch. If it requires personally identifiable information, but has been cleared by the CDO or similar responsibility, the project is automatically posted in the portfolio, as I said before, about the evaluation and selection and authorization criteria in a portfolio. So with that said, this is a good connection when I think about how strategic portfolio management earns its place. It acts as a translator. It takes those big abstract concerns and turns them into the stop and go criteria that the teams on the ground use every day. Remember, I talked about kill your own darlings. And that is, many companies can just keep on with too many initiatives at once without a clear business value. They don't kill the initiatives, they overburden the organization.
So, Christian, that brings us to the last point of today's conversation. Ultimately, adoption of AI-enabled way of working across the organization is the product. What are the non-negotiables on the human side, capability building, incentives, communication, new ways of working that make trust grow instead of resistance? And how do you measure whether AI transformation is really delivering value while staying within the risk appetite of the organization?
Thank you for this very and most important question. Here it comes to human centricity again. Without human-centric AI adoption and transformation, you will not succeed, even if you have measures in place. So let me explain what I mean. Like I'm always saying, is that adoption is the product. And you can have the most sophisticated AI in the world, the best way you want to do it. But if your team doesn't trust it or use it, your ROI is going to be exactly zero.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm talking about is to move from resistance to trust. There are 3 non-negotiables. So it is 1, radical transparency. What do I mean? What are the traits of a modern, good leader? It is transparency as far as possible. 2, it is authenticity. 3 is being direct with empathy and not with micromanagement or management by fear. And it means, in this case, trust grows when you are honest about what AI can and cannot do. And we don't just talk about efficiency. We talk about how AI handles the work of AI, and we humans can focus on the part that is my work, that I actually can augment or delegate or do together with AI. And it's not about increase of productivity. How does it make us as humans being augmented? And of course, how do we accelerate growth, profitability in our companies? So with that said, I would go to the second part, and it's psychological safety. This is my favorite subject. So psychological safety is us leaders making you feel safe enough to open up, to speak freely. And if you have information, if we have made a decision about something and that we did based on the available information, you come and inform me, well, Christian, I have this piece of information and okay, it is relevant. Yes, we look at that. And your piece of information could influence the decision made. So we need to change it. I can give you one example from real life. I was asked in my previous life to help to implement a PMO. So I made a huge plan at that time, a Gantt chart and so forth, and arrived. And I said, "Here, you have the plan." And he looked at it. "What is this, Christian?" "Oh, it's the plan. How are we going to do it?" And then he started to smile, and then he bursted out in laughter. "Christian, it's good that you have a plan." "Why are you saying that?" "Yes, so we can change it."
That's interesting.
Because if you don't have a plan, it's like a tanker that is going wherever. The important part now is to create business agility. You need to work in a context of hybrid mode with a structure, but within the 90 days, you need to work with agile methods. That is really important. And you must make sure that your measures of outcome and success are connected all the way from the board through the C-level with the strategic portfolio management and cascaded down throughout the organization. So with that said, we're coming towards what I wanted to take up as the third part, that is time to proficiency, capability building. So capability building isn't one of training videos. As I said in the beginning, it's about giving people the space to play and to experiment. So there's a lot of discussions ongoing on LinkedIn and everywhere right now about, oh, we need sandboxes, or it's been said, you need sandboxes to experiment, to test, and really you need safe environments that could be test beds from an IT point of view, or test beds from a more holistic point of view, where you can test different ideas with and pilots with AI without compromising data, for instance. So we need to make sure that we measure how quickly a team moves from confused to competent with a tool. That is one of the things here. Then I want just to finalize this question with one more thing. It's about measuring value and risk, a two-way lens, right? So it's about measuring value while staying within the risk appetite, your subject, governance, risk, Thomas. And that is about looking at the strategic portfolio through two lenses. It's one through the business value lens, and second through the risk appetite lens. You must look at the value reinvested. If the AI saves it in 10 hours a week and then are using time to drive new revenue or solve customer problems, well, what is the real value? It is to make sure that this free time is being invested in ways to create real value. And from risk appetite lens, we anchor every pilot to concrete guardrails. So success is staying within the safety zone so that the data privacy is never compromised. And an analogy about this is about a gym membership. Buying AI software is like buying a gym membership, but most companies, they celebrate that they have the contract. But what is the value? The value is only there when you actually go to the gym, and make sure that you do the workout and get stronger. Otherwise, it's kind of useless. So as a transformation leader, my job is to make sure that the gym is safe, the trainers are ready, and the progress is measurable. You measure AI transformation progress through the lens of your portfolio. So we look at two things, the hard ROI, business case, and the adoption velocity, which is the human outcomes. If you have a brilliant tool, but 80% of the team is avoiding it because they don't trust it, that's a portfolio failure.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I see the human metrics as a risk insurance for our portfolio, because without the humans, the value is zero and the risk just keeps skyrocketing. And by treating adoption as a measurable outcome, we bridge the gap between the high-level vision and the actual results the board accepts to see.
Christian, that brings us to the end. That was an amazing conversation, and I really, really loved your stories around houses and the gym, etc. That's excellent, and I'm sure many of us can relate to these kind of examples. What I'm taking away of today's conversation is probably three things. So one, an AI transformation is not an IT project with a go live date. It's a continuous shift in how an organization works. Success becomes visible when AI creates real business value and when people actually use it with confidence and trust. And number two, good governance is not bureaucracy. It's about clear rules, clear ownership, and simple guardrails, as you mentioned it, that allow teams to move fast without creating chaos or risk. The third and last one, the focus should be on the big picture, risk reputation, compliance, workforce impact, and whether AI is truly delivering value. That means measuring both return on investment and real adoption, because without trust and usage, there is no value. And without value creation, the AI transformation will at best only be partially successful. The real value of AI is the augmentation of humans and not its replacement. Did I get this right, Christian?
Yeah, absolutely. That was perfect. And thank you so much about this summary. And this goes very well together with actually what I do. And that is to help boards and C-level leaders to scale AI by combining governance, portfolio discipline, with measurable change in behavior and decision-making based on the 5 pillars of governance, strategy, data, technology, and people. It is AI orchestration, accelerating AI adoption and AI transformation.
Christian, if our listeners would like to find out more about you, where can they get in touch with you, or where can they find you?
They can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, not by simply connecting, but by sending a message clearly referring to this podcast, as I get a lot of connection requests without messages. So it's about creating real connection. And if you want to have me for keynotes at your board or executive briefings, you can get in touch with me. And I would like to thank you, Thomas, for inviting me. It was such a pleasure having this chat with you. Highly interesting, and I had a good time. Thank you so much for having me, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Christian. It was a huge pleasure having you. And to our listener, thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope this episode gave you a fresh perspective on how AI, change management, and governance must be designed as a one integrated playbook, not as 3 separate initiatives. Make sure to subscribe to Governance Unplugged on your preferred podcast platform. And if there is any topic you would like to use or to explore, please drop me a message. And as always, together, let's build stronger, more resilient organizations, one conversation at a time. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep driving governance excellence.